CrackBerry.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the CrackBerry Vodcast, episode 002 for Thursday, March 28th, 2013, I think.
Yeah.
So we're doing another vodcast. We're in our temporary, NYC HQ. We got Blaze again. Adam is not in this one, but we've brought in through the magic of technology, Chris Umiastowski. Hi, Chris.
Hey, I feel like I'm there with you guys. That's good.
You kind of are, right? It works. I mean, why did we waste this money on an office? We could have just done this and I guess been with it. But no, huge day today. So we want to take like 10, 12 minutes, whatever this takes, to work through two key things. Today was earnings day, Q4 2013 fiscal year-end results. And it was also the day that Verizon put the Z10 on sale. So numbers. Chris, I'm just gonna let you do your thing right now because I think CrackBerry Nation likes to know what you think on these types of things.
All right, let me get to it then. So the quarter itself, it was overall, I think, a win for BlackBerry. It's so hard not to say RIM. I have to say that every time I get into the quarter. It's just like anchored, right? RIM. Anyway, no, BlackBerry, it was a miss on the top line and on a subscriber count. Basically, the subscriber count was down. The revenue was a bit of a miss. The shipments was a bit of a miss. But the gross margin was way higher than expected. It came in at 40%. And the street was only expecting 30%, which is a huge difference. And, of course, they were profitable. So on the bottom line, that gross margin drove profit. And they made 22 cents adjusted in earnings per share. The street was expecting them to lose 31 cents a share. So overall, that's absolutely stellar performance on the bottom line. I mean, Torsten has done a really good job of turning this company's cost structure around. So we can talk about the subscribers a bit. They were down 3 million. They had 79 million subscribers last quarter, and that dropped to 76 million. A lot of people are asking questions about what that means. BlackBerry 10 subscribers, the way I understand it, are counted, even though they're not necessarily revenue generating. Like I upgraded to a Z10, and I guess technically I don't generate any revenue for BlackBerry anymore, but I still count as a subscriber. And I guess last but not least, they sold 1 million Z10s, and that was pretty significant. So 1 million devices, that's in line with analysts' expectations. We did have some people who were seeing estimates as low as 300, 400,000 in the quarter. Keep in mind it was only available for a month. And they sold 1 million, so that's pretty good.
Now, I want to talk about that too, though.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
First thing, that million, that is not to date. That's to the end of last month. So basically we had in that number a month of European sales and 3 weeks of Canadian sales. And one thing that I think was pretty clear to us, when it launched in Canada, it wasn't like you weren't guaranteed to get a Z10 if you wanted it, right? Or a Z10 if you wanted it. The stores had sort of limited supplies on launch day. There were people who could not get the phones right away.
Yeah, it was pretty hit or miss.
Yeah, even Blaze last week before coming to New York, you were in Halifax trying to buy a Z10 to give away as a gift to the guy who invented the font.
Yeah.
The Slate font that's in BB10, and you couldn't find one in the city.
Couldn't get one.
So part of that is, I think everything they made, they got rid of in that first month. Which is positive. Maybe they could have sold even more if they had them. There was definitely a bit of a supply chain constraint there going on at the start.
Yeah, in Canada, I think there was a bit of tighter supply than we would have otherwise expected. And that actually came up in one of the comments on the post that I wrote, the quarterly wrap-up post that I wrote. Somebody said, Chris, I think you misunderstood or misinterpreted the data when Torsten said that sell-through was probably between 2/3 and 3/4 of that 1 million units. Somebody suggested, it was probably closer to 100% for the first month. And I think that may have been true in Canada, but I'm not so sure that it was true in the UK and other markets.
Hard to say, though, because, even when it launched, we were hearing stories where, UK stores were getting in inventory and it was disappearing right away because, rich oil sheiks from Dubai and places were coming in and buying them out to take back home.
Yeah.
That was the first couple weeks, right? And then as they started to hit more markets, I think things settled down.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that probably in that first month, there was a better sell-through than the number they reported. I think Thornton said to date that the sell-through was about 2/3 to 3/4 of all. But that's, obviously to date they've sold more than 1 million. Right. Quarter end they sold 1 million, and yeah, I think you're right. Probably a large majority of those sold through.
So let's talk about the stock for a second, because it was a different day, right? Instead of having our traditional Thursday evening press release after the markets close and then followed by an earnings call, which would be happening, I guess normally almost right now as we're recording this video. Yeah. Because of Good Friday, they did the earnings release in the morning before the markets opened, and the call before the markets opened. We saw right away in pre-trading that first it went up like 5 to 8%, and then by the time the conference call started, it was down to -3, and then it came up a little bit, and over the course of the day, it wandered around, and I think it closed like slightly down.
Yeah, I'm showing it at 14.45, down 12 cents, but after hours up 3 cents. So you know what? Call it a flat day, because in tech, anything under, to me, anything under 2 or 3% is like, who cares? It's nothing.
Right, just fluctuation.
Yeah, that's normal capacity.
Yeah, I mean, people go, why is RIM up? I remember my sales desk used to ask me, why is RIM up so much today? I'd look at it and go, it's up 2%. Like, who cares?
So I look at a flat day for BlackBerry today to be a huge win, because yesterday the report came out saying there is 155 million shares of BlackBerry stock shorted, right, in the short position.
Yeah.
Which, this is ridiculous, because if you take out Mike Lazaridis' holdings, former RIM co-CEO, founder, Prem Watsa's holdings, it's like you're looking at almost 1 in 2 investors shorting the stock, right? It's like a flip of a coin they're at.
Yeah, it's almost that much. I think that when we chatted about it earlier, I had Lazaridis' percentage wrong. He owns 5.7%.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to look it up right now, but I think Prem was at close to 20%. Was
he that high already?
I think he was. You know what?
But you're talking like over 30% then of the stock short.
Yeah. Let's say that's
pretty high number.
It's a pretty high number. Like, there's a lot of people.
It's something like 25% of the stock is controlled by those guys. So if you say instead of 30% of the total shares out, it's 30% of the 75% that's actually available in float. It's a huge percentage of the float.
Now, how often in your experience have you seen that over the years, where you get that big of a percentage, betting on a company to not deliver?
I honestly can't remember exact metrics of other stocks, like big stocks that people were shorting, like Nortel. It got pretty high, but I don't remember how high it got.
Okay.
This has to be up there.
I would think so. I mean, it seems pretty crazy, and there's obviously a lot of talk. I look in our forums. We have our new BBRY Stock Talk forums, and there's lots of theories. I was going to say conspiracy theories, but I don't even think they're conspiracy theories anymore. I mean, when you have that many people waiting for the company to not do well, you can't help but think and believe that some of the stuff you see in the media and elsewhere is controlled by that. I mean, we're talking massive dollars banking and betting on the stock going down. So for all those people who shorted today, I mean, I'm excited. It stayed even. RIM got through a massive quarter here. All those people are probably pretty ticked off right now, who are betting on today being the day where they would be cashing in those shorts.
Yeah, I think though people have to remember there's the other side of the coin too. So you'll have the shorts, and there's tons of them out there, obviously, and they have an incentive to, let's say, spin news and make it negative, make it appear more negative, and call up the Wall Street Journal and get them to write negative stuff and go on CNBC and say a bunch of crap that isn't necessarily true. Sure. But the same thing holds true for the longs, right? I mean, the classic hedge fund is going to go long stock and they're going to go short stock, and the same thing with pension funds and mutual funds. They're going to typically go long only, but they have an investment. And it's going to be in their interest to talk up a stock in the same way that it's in the short's interest to talk down a stock.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is we have to keep in mind, we always have to have a balanced perspective when we look at news, because the guys, and if you look at analysts, this is a perfect situation here. I've really started to notice this over the last couple of years, of course, since I'm not in that role anymore, but I've done it, did it for so long, I know how it works. But you look at a bullish analyst, and he will take news and tend to spin it with a bullish tone. He wants to talk up his own view on the stock. It's
Right.
Cialdini's rule of commitment and consistency. And if you have a bearish analyst, they'll take news that we think looks good and they'll spin it negatively because it fits their view on the stock.
The agenda.
What really is interesting is when you see a bullish analyst look at news and write about how it negatively impacts his view on the stock or downgrades as a result of it. That's a flip. It's harder to do psychologically, right? It's difficult to look at news that you didn't predict ahead of time and say, oh, geez, you know what? I have to change my view here.
Well, okay, agreed. So today, this quarter, to me, if we look at the last year, it's been, here's what's been happening in my mind, right? And this is the story with BlackBerry. I'm going to draw it out with my hands. You basically have BlackBerry 7 business kind of going like this.
Yeah.
You've got, BlackBerry 10 business, the plan is for it to go like this. And then basically you've got a straight line here, which is how much, fuel BlackBerry has in the tank in terms of money in the bank and everything else. And what BlackBerry is doing right now is they need to get this new business, taking over the BB7 and older device decline and doing it above that line. Because once you get below that line and you start to run out of cash and everything else, it's game over, right? You don't have anything to work with.
You're in real trouble then.
And this was the quarter where I think we would see what was going to happen, right? I mean, this was the quarter where, okay, the new business is finally starting, the old business is coming down. Could they pull it off? And today it was better than expected, right? They actually grew their cash position. They're in a better, the product is in the market. They can invest in marketing. They said they're going to invest, 50% more than currently they have been. And now they're in the race again.
All right, so on that point, Kevin, I think we got our first glimpse last quarter of a subscriber decline, right? BlackBerry 10 hadn't launched yet, and they lost 1 million subscribers. So to me, that was I guess inflection point is the wrong term. It was a bit of a crest in their subscriber, a local crest, a peak in their subscriber count, and we started seeing the decline. Now, given that BlackBerry 10 launched late in the quarter, it's only natural to assume that that decline would accelerate, would get steeper.
Right.
And it did. So they lost 3 million and it changed, depending on how you did the math, subscribers off of the BlackBerry 6 and 7 framework. They substituted some of those 6 and 7 losses into Z10 ownership. So basically those net out, but it got worse, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And so this quarter, really, it was interesting to see, okay, how much worse is it going to get on the BB6, BB7 front, and how quickly is the BB10 going to ramp up? And that speaks exactly to those two crossing over lines that you described. And I think it's, at this point, I'm pretty comfortable saying that BlackBerry 10 is taking off. It's selling well enough that it will offset the losses of the BB6 and the BB7. I think that their sub base will start to stabilize here, and then hopefully over time it'll continue to grow and they'll hit 100 million plus. But that's probably going to take a little while. And in the meantime, here's the important point for investors. In the meantime, the BlackBerry 10 stuff is profitable. The gross margins on those devices are very, very good, and that's generating profits. So if the service revenue is, I was worried about it collapsing, right, over the period of a year, is going to go down by 50%. It looks like that's not going to happen. It looks like it's driving down only about 3% a quarter right now. So at that rate, they can afford to lose some service revenue, but they're making it up big time on that one-off initial gross margin of a device sale, and that's what's spiking earnings. So yes, I think over the next 2-3 quarters, things are going to look very, very interesting if they can keep up the pace of the BB10 growth.
Yeah, and that's one thing you need to look at, right, is it's still going to be introduced in a lot of markets, and the Q10 isn't here yet. And we know the Q10 is going to be the device a lot of existing BlackBerry owners upgrade to. We're seeing it on the site right now. A lot of people we talk to, it's like, no, I've held out being a BlackBerry owner so long because I just want the physical keyboard. Yeah. Z10 looks great. I don't care. I want the physical keyboard, and I'm going to wait for the Q10. And I think that'll be a nice little spike where BlackBerry can keep launching in new markets the next quarter. If they get the Q10 out there in the next month or whatever it is, 2 months, whatever, it's going to be another spike on numbers and hopefully keep things going. Heinz talked about today replacing service revenues. It sounds very wishy-washy. I think your analysis editorial kind of mentioned that. It's probably going to be a while before they roll out something that people really care about or the street cares about. But I think they're working on it. They have ideas coming down the pipe.
Yeah, and they've been speaking the same kind of line for a while, so I'm sure they're further along than they were. And they really haven't altered their song at all here. It sounds very much like they plan on taking a multifaceted approach to generating new service revenues, which is good. But it does still sound early days to me.
Yeah. One thing, one of the questions that came up during the Q&A period that was interesting was, if you did the math on the number of carriers that's been rolled out on, the number of more countries and carriers they're going to hit, and kind of the number of devices they expect to sort of get out there, it seemed like it was fairly conservative numbers, like each carrier picking up 30,000 units on average was equaling what they would do.
I think it was even from Morgan Stanley who brought that up in the Q&A session, right? And I didn't do the math, but he must have had his model there in front of him, and he kind of plunked in, with a 50% increase in marketing, how many devices do they have to sell to offset that expense to still be at kind of break even? He came up with a number of how many devices they should sell. I think he came up with the number 3.5 million, and then divided that by, I assume, the 60 carriers that have already launched, and also I think 220 carriers that have certified it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So you're dividing 3.5 million by 280 carriers, and I think he said something like 12,500 devices per carrier.
Yeah, it was low,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was a really low number.
It'll be interesting.
That's kind of the math I guess he went through, and it does seem a little low. Plus, there's got to be some Q10 in there, and I think Thorsten agreed that it could be a conservative number.
Exactly. No, and overall, I think better than expected, Dave. From my perspective, I think better than expected.
Look, the cost structure alone, they've shown us that the sub base is not eroding as fast as we worried, which means the service base is not collapsing, service revenue base. They're profitable on the hardware, they're profitable right now, the volume that they're doing, and then they're going to, of course, ramp up their marketing, which should help sales too. So maybe they make a little bit of profit next quarter, maybe they make a small loss, maybe they do better than expected and post a very decent profit. But I think BlackBerry's back in the game, baby.
I can't even lie, as long as they posted somewhat of a profit, I was quite pleased. That was better than what I had personally expected. So I've
been hoping,
yes.
Look, on a site like CrackBerry, we get a lot of indicators, in our day-to-day traffic, right? We have things like our visitors to our site, we have things like accessory store sales, registered member trends. There's a lot of things that we just see in running a site like CB that I use as, what's the word? It's almost like a proxy, or no, it's a model to follow, right? It's an related indicator. And everything's been really good on CB. The site's busier than it's been in forever. I don't know if the forums and that have ever been so busy. So, that's not necessarily always indicative of mainstream adoption, but in terms of that core BlackBerry user base, it's awesome right now. And it's actually a lot of happy people. This isn't like the BlackBerry Storm days when it's a forum full of ticked off people. There are some people who are instigators and ticked off, but overall, I'm like, wow, people are loving their Z10s.
I think it's only going to essentially get better from here on out as well, because you still have the Q10 launch, like you said. There's a huge, massive amount of people that are still waiting for the Q10. They don't, a couple of them here and there have picked up the Z10, but there's still a massive amount of people that are like, no, I think I'll just wait for the Q10. And, that's going to carry them through. If there's a lot of people that are going and holding out for the Q10, then once the Z10 is, sort of older at that point, then we're going to see another influx of new users who are going for the Q10. Well, they may not necessarily be new users, but they're spending money, they're buying devices, they're adding to the contract. So
Heinz made a point on the call today to say, was it 55% of Z10 owners are coming from other platforms, so iOS, Android. Now, the thing that isn't broken out there is how many of those people were former BlackBerry users who went to iOS and Android to now come back to BlackBerry. It doesn't really matter. It's still a person leaving another platform coming back. But yeah, I think when the Q10 hits in, it's going to be another shot, a shot of sales. One thing that has me excited, again, sort of better than expected, Verizon launched the Z10 today. So
I want to hear about that.
yeah, we went and picked one up. Here's the box. It's nice and basic. It was just a nice little black box. But we went to the store closest to us, the Bryant Park store. So close to Times Square.
That's a nice location.
Nice location.
Yeah.
In general, New York's actually pretty quiet right now because of I guess Passover's on. So there's just downtown's not as busy as normal. So it wasn't like crazy lineups or anything like that. But what I was really happy about was the presence in the store. So I mean, AT&T so far, I want to say so far because I think things will change over the next few weeks, was quite quiet with their presence, and it seemed like even the employee knowledge of the Z10 and everything has been quiet. T-Mobile, when we went, had a pretty good presence in the local New York stores here, but elsewhere I think it's still ramping up. But Verizon today, they had really good signage in store, like literally, the nice bright signs hung on the walls that aren't just like a piece of paper, like they're literally proper, I don't know what the word is, like display advertising.
Display advertising.
They also had some knock-up stands, good, placement on the shelves.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, employees were excited. Like, we were talking to a bunch of guys there, and they had been using the Z10, and they liked it. And even when we were there, one guy came in. A few people were buying C10s. This one guy came in who was picking up 2 iPhones for his daughters. And he's like, that's what he wanted. His 2 younger daughters just wanted iPhones to play with. That's what her friends had. And even the guy working with him was like, why don't you get them BlackBerries, the new Z10? He was like selling him. Like, this guy came in wanting 2 iPhones, and he was trying to sell them to this guy 2 Z10s. And the guy was like, well, I'm a yeah, it's a great sign. I was like, really? A guy comes in buying 2 iPhones for his daughters, and you're going to try to sell him 2 Z10s? I'm like, that's awesome. I mean,
and more importantly, he was interested in, he actually wanted to go ahead and do it.
He was close.
How does this work? How does this security work? How does this work? He wanted to know all about it.
Well, for him, he was a BlackBerry user. He's like, well, I'm going to upgrade for sure. He's like, our company will get them soon. He's like, I think they're testing BlackBerry 10 now. But it was pretty funny, It was good to see the sales guy doing the selling of BlackBerry in that case. So I was pretty intrigued by that. And we talked to one of the district managers there, and same thing, at least in this New York area, there's absolutely a big BlackBerry user base that I think all the carriers, everybody we've talked to, whether it's AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon, they know that these people will upgrade. And it's surprising, even walking around, I still see a ton of BlackBerries here on the streets.
Yeah.
So I just look at it and think, okay, it's a big city. There's a lot of people here who will upgrade, likely over the upcoming weeks ahead. And I think you're going to see BlackBerry.
Those guys are on it, I suppose those guys are on it.
Well,
a lot of 9900s.
Yeah. So definitely, again, better than expected. But I was pretty happy with the Verizon in-store signage, at least at this store. Over the weekend we'll go out and check things out. I think with a lot of the U.S. marketing, you're going to see it start now. Now that the 3 carriers have rolled it out, now it makes more sense for BlackBerry to ramp up their direct advertising, and I think you'll see some of the carriers do it.
And it makes when it comes to the carriers, now that it's available everywhere, you're going to see them fighting for a little bit more competition. So,
what do you think?
We should expect to see some Verizon commercials on TV in April.
I hope so. That's your call? You're calling Verizon hero status, or a little bit of love at least?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna. April's not that far away, so I'm gonna watch for it.
yeah.
Okay. On that note, we're gonna wind this baby down. Couple things to talk about first, and I want to thank our sponsors. We've got sponsors, Chris. It's wicked. You're not here to benefit. We've got Vita Coco. We got Vita Coco, who is keeping us hydrated and healthy, which is awesome. They loaded us up with just cratefuls of this stuff, which we've been drinking all day long, and it's delicious, including the coffee flavored one. Can we get that here? This needs to be.
The coffee one is the one that I most like.
This is delicious. It's like.
What's in it?
Well, it's like coconut water espresso, but it tastes like chocolate milk. Natural coconut water, reduced fat milk, organic, fair trade. I mean, you can't go wrong. And then also, we had the greatest thing ever happen yesterday and today, which was I got a tweet from a nice lady named Victoria, a nice girl named Victoria. And she sent us a photo and she said, you guys could be eating this tomorrow. And it turns out she has her own like food delivery service in New York, works with another chef, huge CrackBerry fans. So they brought us.
I saw that tweet today and I looked at the photo and I was like, man.
Unbelievable. So they brought us by just this wicked spread of food today, including homemade BlackBerry jam, CrackBerry jam, which is built and made with love to keep you moving. And cracked butter. So when we run out of the food they brought, we can make some peanut butter jelly sandwiches here. Oh, and the cracked butter is to help us sell like hell. Like seriously, it was just awesome. So I'll put the links in the show, but totally got some sponsors. Other things, Monday, 12 noon Eastern. Everybody be on crackberry.com. We are doing the BBM stress test again. I don't know what's gonna happen. Basically, I'm gonna post the pin from this BlackBerry Z10 public, and we're gonna see if it catches fire or blows up or what. We don't really know.
It's like the CrackBerry version of Billy Blend.
It kind of is, like,
will it smoke?
And I mean, when we did this, we've done this test twice on BlackBerry 7 or 6 or 5 and 6 phones, on the Bold 9000 and on the Bold 9650.
Yeah.
I mean, it killed the phones. I mean, it absolutely killed the phones. But in that case, you had application memory sitting in the same spot as OS memory, and that was it. BBM just brought the phone down. And what was the hardest part was you literally had like 10,000 BBM requests, just boom, boom, boom. Like we were getting 1,000 requests plus in 10 minutes, and the phone just couldn't cope with it. Right? It would like be beeping with every invite, like bing, 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 and then it would like go bing, 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 and it would skip some bangs, and it just didn't know what was happening. But with BB10, it should be able to take it. I mean,
I think it'll take it, but I don't think BlackBerry Messenger will actually work. Like,
worst case, it'll just close the app.
Yeah, it'll crash the app, but I think the rest of the phone, you'll still be able to use the rest.
I don't know. My only thing is, like, I think we've heard, right, once it hits a cap of like 2,000 contacts, it quits accepting invites. But I'll just be really curious, because if we get like 1,000 invites that first couple minutes, I don't know what the phone's gonna do. Battery's maybe the phone gets hot. I mean, I remember with BB7, like the phone got hot. I mean, that thing was on fire when it was happening. So
that's what I mean. Will it smoke?
We're gonna do that as I almost dropped the phone. And last thing, heads up, next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, April 4th, we're having a little party in New York City for people who are here. So keep it locked to the site. We'll have all the details on that.
Yeah, we're not going to give away the full details yet, but you'll have to stay tuned. It's going to be epic.
Okay.
You're making me want to buy a plane ticket.
Do it. And look, I've got Bloomberg on TV here. I'm watching Bloomberg West BlackBerry Post surprise Q4 profit. That's a great way to end it. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Chris, thanks for jumping on, talking the
Thanks for making sense of everything, Yumi.
Pleasure, guys. Good to be here.
That's it.
In New York, so.
All right, CrackBerry.
We're out.